to cover. Are you happy, YouTube? Can you stop flagging me now? What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Animation Station. Happy Zelda Day! Yeah, Tears of the Kingdom came out today. And I want to give a little rant about this before anyone asks how I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it, but after the price comes down. Sorry, $70 for a Switch game, no matter how good it is utter crap. Unless it's a collector's edition of some sort. Yeah, unless it's a collector's edition or it's a bundle. I will accept $70 if it's a collector's edition or if it's a bundle that has more than one game. Like more than one game case that it comes with. Those I will be okay with $70. But for one game, no. Not to mention the Switch itself is a last-gen system, so... Yep, if I do get around to playing Tears of the Kingdom, it's going to be because I asked for it for Christmas. So, yep, either that or the price comes down. One or the other has got to happen. Either that or I'm not touching it. Alright? I just wanted to make that clear right off the bat. But, that's all the negative talk because, oh yes, I've been waiting for this for a while. I have been waiting at least 10 years to talk about this one. This is the show that got me into Power Rangers. It's the show that I have the most familial connection with because this was on Jetix, which had the same... Like, it was the same channel that had Sonic X, that had TMNT 2003. Like, it was literally on my childhood channel. So, yep. In between all the dubs of English anime, well, all the English dubs of anime that were coming out on Jetix, this was in one of the runs, and I liked the one episode I saw of Ninja Storm on rerun syndication, which was the day before this came out, so... Yeah. I'm a huge fan of Dino Thunder. It is my favorite season of the show, and in my opinion, the best season of the show, which is why I gave it such a big build-up. Okay, maybe just a little more. I'll do the Morphin sequence. Dino Thunder! Power up! You know, it's not exactly that, but... yeah. And if you're asking why I don't have a Dino Thunder Morpher... Bro, those things are like $300 now. There's no way I'm getting one. As much as I would love to. So... But yeah. Dino Thunder. This season is amazing. This season is awesome, and it still has yet to be topped, even, what, almost 20 years later? Because I believe next year this turns 20 years old. Man, I feel old. But man, I love Dino Thunder, so I'm excited to get into this. So, without any more further delays or ados, let's start with the analysis portion. That way I can just spend the rest of the time glowing about this one. And yes, this video might be an hour long, because I just have so much praise to heap on this show. This season especially. So, sit back, grab a drink, grab a comfy chair, and let's dive in. Starting off with our main Rangers, we have Kira, played by Emma Lahana, and one thing I want to point out, and this just might be a bit of speculation, but you know what else was popular in 2004, aside from Power Rangers? Avril Lavigne. I feel like Kira was Power Rangers' answer to Avril Lavigne, because Avril was big back in the 2000s, starting in 2002 with Complicated. Since then, she's been kind of in fluctuation with Billboard, but Billboard sucks anyway, so you know what? It's their loss, her game. So... yeah, that's my speculation. That's why she's a music artist, and that's why she has that design and that kind of attitude, because she's pretty much Avril Lavigne if she was a Power Ranger. And it's just as awesome as it sounds, not to mention Kira herself is just an awesome character. Not only because she's a very talented singer, seriously, Emma Lahana has a beautiful voice, but also because she can flip between being somewhat kind and understanding to, you know, BA. Like that. She's not my favorite Yellow Ranger. I already said that that's a tight race between Dustin and Chip, but she's up there. And she's definitely my favorite female Yellow Ranger. No offense to Trini or any of the other female Yellow Rangers we've had over the years. I just really like Kira as a character and the way she develops throughout the series. So yeah. Yeah, this is going to be very informational because I have so much to say about this season. Next up is Ethan, played by Kevin Duhaney? Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. He's the token nerd character of the group, a lot like how Billy was in Mighty Morphin. You know, the Blue Ranger being the nerd. That's kind of been a stereotype of Power Rangers for a while, with the exception of Rocky from Zeo. But he's also, I'm trying to say this without sounding culturally insensitive, African American. So that's two different minorities you're trying to hit. You're hitting the nerds and you're hitting the African American, differentiation. And he's not the first African American Ranger because I believe that was, TJ back again in Turbo. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong on that. I've watched so many of these seasons that sometimes they blend together. But anyway, moving away from that, Ethan's an awesome character. And as a kid, he was my favorite because the way he was able to solve problems, the powers of the Triceratops, my personal favorite dinosaur ever since I was a kid. I just love the Triceratops. And he's just an all-around awesome guy. Not to mention he's a gaming geek. I mean, yeah, he was pretty much speaking to me. So, yeah, I really like Ethan. He is an awesome, awesome character and one of my favorites from the series. Now, my absolute favorite, we're going to get there, but I loved Ethan's character, and I think he is an awesome Ranger. Moving on from there, we get to our Red Ranger, Connor, played by James Napier? Sorry if I'm mispronouncing. I'm sorry, I'm terrible at pronouncing things. Oh my goodness, is he a good Red Ranger? Now, a lot of that may be to the design because, the visor has these spikes. It's freaking cool. But, I mean, it's also because he's the most developed character of the season. Because, let's think about this. At the start, he is a pretty much one-noted soccer fanatic, the jock type in Power Rangers, not the first at that. And then, throughout the show, he starts to shift a little, starting to realize his responsibilities, realizing, friendship and how, he can be open with others and still like what he likes. Connor gets the most development in the season, and by the end of the season itself, he's almost a completely different character. And I feel like that was to the benefit, because Connor himself, while he does start out as a bit of a douche, he develops into a great Ranger, and a very good Red Ranger at that. Not quite great, I want to say, because sometimes he does have his troubles leading the team, especially when they first start, but over time, he does develop, and he does become more experienced and mature to a certain degree. So, yeah, Connor's an awesome character. Then, of course, we have Tommy back again. Rest in peace, JDF. I already did my tribute to him way back in Mighty Morphin, so I'm not going to do it again here, but I am going to say that it's awesome that they brought him back to be the mentor at first, at least for the first 2 or 3 episodes, and then he comes back as a Power Ranger. And in my opinion, he comes back as a cool Ranger, the Black Dino Thunder Ranger. I'm going to glow all about the designs of these costumes later, but he's definitely one of my favorites. But he's still not my favorite character in the cast. Believe it or not, that's actually the White Ranger, Trent, played by Jeffrey Perazzo, who later comes back in Super Ninja Steel. I like Trent. His character is very understandable. We get another Evil Ranger arc, which those are just always such a treat. And while some are done better than others, I love Trent's here. And not to mention the White Ranger himself is just BA AF. seriously, I'll get into it later, but he's so cool. And not to mention, you can understand Trent's plight as well. Like, he's not a one-note bad guy. He has dimension. He has, character. And character has growth throughout the season. And having another evil ranger, well, this is an anniversary season, so it makes a lot of sense, because instead of something like Super Mega Force that just tries to throw legendary rangers in your face, instead this one tries to be a bit more subtle with how it's an anniversary season. Harkening back to Mighty Morphin days by having a Dino-themed team, by having Tommy back again, by having similar themes to the first season of Mighty Morphin. Like, it all feels very traditional. And Trent is kind of like Tommy was in that first season. He starts out evil, and the difference between this one, though, is that Trent does resist the evil urge. Like, he does resist it, and then after a while, he does transition into it, and then his father is able to break him free from it. I will talk about Anton Mercer later, but I really like Trent. He's a really cool character, and he has one of the most awesome designed Ranger outfits ever. Like, seriously, how can you not love the White Ranger outfit with the stark white, the black spikes, and that red visor with that black outline? Just, I could fanboy about that for hours. I love that suit so much. But yeah, that's our main team. Kira, Ethan, Connor, Tommy, and Trent. Really good cast, if you ask me. And Tommy coming back as a mentor makes a lot of sense. And it does a great job developing his character, even all these seasons later after he technically left the show halfway through Turbo. So, yeah. I really like this team. It's probably my favorite team in all Power Rangers. Then moving on from there, we have the crossover characters of the season, which of course is the Ninja Storm Rangers. Dustin, Tori, Shane, Hunter, Blake, and Cameron. And they're pretty cool. And I also like especially how they also bring back the main villain from the previous season to the crossover. Not to mention the crossover is a two-parter, so it doesn't feel rushed, which is great. And I'll talk more about it later, but that is one of my favorite crossovers in Power Rangers. Moving on from that, I'll just fly through the rest of these so I actually have time to glow about the rest. Next up, we have the supporting cast. We have Haley, played by Ismay Johnston. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your first name. She's kind of like the assistant to Tommy with the technical stuff. She's a cool character. I like her. Then we come to the comedic relief characters of the season, which are Devin and Cassidy, played by Tom Hearn and Katrina Devine Azusa. Yeah, you heard that right. That's Mora from Ninja Storm in a different role. Power Rangers recycles actors a lot, so this is just one of the more well-known examples. And they're no Bulk and Skull, absolutely not, but they're entertaining and I like them. They're not actively annoying, and sure, Cassidy's like the big popular girl and a bit snooty, but she's not to the point of unlikable. And throughout the series, just like the actual Rangers themselves develop, she develops as well. And not to mention, her cameraman Devin also develops as a character as well. And my computer's turning off because I'm talking for too long, and I'm sorry. But yeah, I like Devin and Cassidy. They're nowhere near the greatness of Bulk and Skull, but I really like them. And then moving on from there, we have Anton Mercer, played by Latham Gaines. I really like Anton Mercer. This whole like Jekyll and Hyde sort of situation with him and the villain I'm going to talk about in a minute, but I really like him. Not to mention, it kind of makes sense why he is the way he is and why he tries to sway Trent the way that he tries to sway him, like saying he can't be an artist and he needs to be a businessman, or stuff like that. Obviously, things that Rangers are going to repeat, yes, but still, it's a really good story, and I feel like Anton Mercer's friendship with Tommy, it's genuine. It doesn't feel forced or haphazard. Like, it takes time to develop, and that's the thing that makes this season so great. It takes time to develop the characters instead of just being monster of the week. Like, yes, you have your filler episodes, but pretty much every episode in this season is vital to the overall story in one way, shape, or form. Which is interesting because I don't feel like we've come across that in Power Rangers before, aside from maybe Ninja Storm, but that was more in a couple of flashes and glances rather than all together. Which, again, it's very interesting. Sorry if my fan's messing with the audio. It's hot in here, and it's going to start getting hot outside, so I have to have it running. Okay, let's stop messing around and talk about the villains. Best villains in any Power Ranger franchise, period, and I will fight you on this. Let's start with what is, in my opinion, the best villain of the whole dang franchise, Mesogog, who's also played by Latham Gaines. I love Mesogog, from his design to the fact that he's straight up evil, to his voice, to his plans. Like, he's intelligent, he is intimidating, and he knows exactly what he's doing. Most of the time when the failures come around, it's either from miscalculations that he makes or from his lackeys failing to carry out his plans. And not to mention his whole Jekyll and Hyde thing with Anton Mercer. It's so well done, so cool. And not to mention Mesogog's design, just, oh my goodness, his design's so good. I mean, the fact that it took this long for us to get a action figure of Mesogog, that's an absolute crime. Seriously, Mesogog is awesome. I will gladly defend and fight you on this and say he is the best villain in all of Power Rangers. Yes, even better than Lord Zed. Moving on from there, we have Elsa, also known as Principal Randall, played by Miriama Smith. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. She's pretty cool too, but she is kind of stereotypical second-hand person. But she's fine. She does her job well, and her interactions with the Rangers as Principal Randall in the school is pretty funny. So, you know. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about Principal Randall. She's pretty good. She works for what she is, and that's really all I can say about her. Then we come to Zeltrax, voiced by James Galen. I love Zeltrax. Like, the way he connects with Tommy, the whole tragic backstory he has that would later become reused to some extent in Samurai with Decker. And his fights with Tommy in almost every episode are just a delight to see, from the choreography to the story behind each battle, and just the history between the two. Like, seriously, Zeltrax is awesome. He's not as awesome as Mesogog himself, but he's awesome, and I will gladly defend him being another one of those, like, best villains in Power Rangers. So yeah, there's that. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, Trent and Tommy are my favorite black and white Rangers. I forgot to mention that. My bad. Okay, moving on from that. Then we have the evil white Dino Ranger, which is the evil manifestation of Trent at first, who's voiced by Adam Gardner, and his voice is... his voice. It just has this low-term, soft-spoken, just menace to it. And it works so well. Like when he says, laser arrows. Like, it doesn't sound like he's phoning it in. It sounds like he is legit just intimidating as all get out. Sorry, it's so hard not to curse because of just how much I love this season. But yeah, I love that. And then for the foot soldiers of this season, you had the Tyrannodranes. They're pretty cool. I might need to pull up a picture of them again. Give me just a sec. I'm just seeing pictures. Oh yeah. Yeah, they're pretty cool. It kind of looks like they're reusing Lothor's mask for like the head spikes, but they look pretty cool, and they look prehistoric just like they should. I don't think they're as well designed as Mesogog, which, I mean, if your main villain is not as well designed as the foot soldiers, there's a problem, but yeah, I really like the Tyrannodranes. They're pretty cool foot soldiers. I'd probably say the best since the Putties. which again makes sense because this is an anniversary season, harkening back to the old days of Mighty Morphin. And then for the returning villains for the crossover, Lothor, Mara, and Capri. I'm sure there's more, but those are the three that I can remember. Oh, sorry, I am hitting my desk. And then, of course, the Kelzacks. Now I want to talk about something that I haven't really talked about with Power Rangers yet, and it's something I didn't really feel was worth noting until now, because this is when it starts becoming more prominent. I want to talk a bit about the civilian powers, as Linkara dubs them on his History of Power Rangers series, where out of costume, the Rangers themselves have powers, and I can understand they can be a bit annoying, like, well, why have the suits then if you can just have powers outside of the suits? And I can understand that complaint, but me personally, I like the civilian powers, because it's kind of like, you know those in-between stages in something like Mighty Morphin where they have like the ninja mode before they turn into full-on ranger mode? Like, I feel like the civilian powers are kind of like a substitution of that, in a way, so yeah, I really like the civilian powers, especially in this season, which is why I want to talk about them. Kira gets a sonic scream, pretty much becoming Black Canary. Ethan gets a cool one. He has Tricera skin, that pretty much makes his skin indestructible, and he has super strength on top of that, so he's indestructible and he has super strength. That's like 2 powers in one, and it's awesome. Yeah, you see why he's my favorite, at least when I was a kid. Then Red Ranger gets super speed. It's okay, it works. And then Black Ranger, Tommy, gets invisibility from his Dino Gem, which is awesome. Like, Tommy being able to go invisible, like, that's lethal, especially with his kind of expertise and martial arts experience. Like, I mean, sadly, we don't get to see him, like, use it a whole lot, but we do get to see a bit of it in Super Ninja Steel, which I will talk about when I get to that season. Seriously, Dimensions in Danger is such an awesome episode. And then for White Ranger, he gets camouflage, but then he also gets super speed. Yeah, I feel like they kind of ran out of ideas, but you know what? It's fine. It works. It is what it is. Moving on to the weapons, and these are also some of my favorites in the series. For the universal weapons, we have the Thundermax sabers, which are just, you know, your usual typical Power Ranger swords with a bit of a dino theme to it, so not really much to talk about with there. And then we get to the Ranger-specific weapons. We have the Terra Grips for the Yellow Ranger, which are kind of like daggers, but they can also be formed together to make one weapon that looks almost like a mini bow, but she doesn't really do that. They're mainly just used as daggers, but they're cool. And they're cooler design daggers than the ones from Mighty Morphin. Yeah, I said it, fight me. Then Ethan, Blue Ranger, gets the Tricera shield. Makes sense. He's a Triceratops. They're usually all about defense rather than offense, so yeah, makes sense to give him a shield. And the shield itself is a pretty cool design. And then we come to Connor's weapon. One of my favorites in all Power Rangers. He gets a Tyranno staff. Now, at first you're thinking, what, just a staff? Oh, come on, that just sounds so boring and stupid. Yes, but hear me out. Yes, it is just a staff. But you know what this staff has on the end of it? A T-Rex head. And that's not there for just aesthetic. It can chomp the enemies. Like, while he's swinging that thing, he can just... Like, that is some nice versatility. Not to mention, it's just awesome. It's just an awesome weapon. I mean, if you're really going to complain about having a dino head on a weapon being impractical, you clearly don't know Power Rangers at all. They love doing this type of stuff. So, yeah, that doesn't bother me. Then the Brachio staff, it's more of a sword that Tommy holds upside down, kind of like his old White Ranger Saba sword, but it's still cool, it's still fine, it's cool and it's well designed. It's just not really a staff, it's more of a sword, but whatever. And then speaking of sword, that's what the White Ranger gets. And his sword's pretty cool. Like, it's kind of like the fin, like one of the scales of a dragon blade, and then it has like black etchings across it. Like, it's a sick weapon. It is so cool. And then those four combine together to make the Z-Rex Blaster, and then the Dragosaur just has its own little blast effect thing. So, yep. Then for the Battleizer, we get 2 this season, and this one can be used by all 5 members, which is something that has been missing in Power Rangers, I believe, for a while now. I think the last time we had universal Battleizers was, I think it was in space, right? No, it wasn't in space. It was, shoot. I don't think we've actually had them since now. Interesting. This might be the first one that has universal Battleizers, but yeah, they all have a Super Dino mode, which pretty much makes all the white on their costumes turn to spikes. And what's especially cool about the White Ranger is that his spikes are also on his gloves, which means he gets 2 giant blades on his hands. Ah, it's so cool. And then also the way the spikes go up on the shoulder pads, just oh my god, I love the White Dino Ranger. He is so freaking sick. And then, of course, you do still get the Red Ranger exclusive Battleizer this season as well. Oh no, I remember, the Lights of Orion from Lost Galaxy. That's the last universal one I can remember. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Memory, for clicking at that time before I cut the video off. Anyway, Red Ranger, he gets a Triassic mode, which is when he gets this giant Triassic shield, and then the 2 other Rangers put their powers into it, which means they have to demorph, but it's cool. And this one gives Connor stretchy arms and makes him have gold trim around his suit. It's absurd, but it's Power Rangers, so I can buy it. It looks sick. I especially love all the gold around the suit that is added once he goes into Triassic mode. Like, it is sick. I love it. It's so cool. Moving on from there, we have the vehicles. These are pretty simplistic, so I'm just going to run through them real quick. You have the Raptor Riders for all 5 Rangers. And then for red, blue, and yellow, you have the Raptor Cycles. Black and white get the Dino ATVs. Blue Ranger gets his own exclusive vehicle. He gets the Hovercraft Cycle. And then all of them can use the Triceramax Command Center truck. Yeah, pretty much that. Then for the Zords, this one's pretty self-explanatory as well. Terra, Tricera, Tyranno, Brachio, and Drago. Yeah. But I'm also going to list all the extra additional Zords because this is Dino Thunder and I want to give it special treatment. So, for the other Zord, we have the Black Ranger and the White Ranger being able to use the Stegosaur, which is pretty much a storage compartment for all the other Zords, but it can still work as a Zord on its own. And it's pretty cool. And then for the miscellaneous Zords that they use for like swap-ins for power-ups and stuff like that, you have a Mezzodon, a Cephalod, a Dimetro, a Parasaur, and an Ankylo. Yeah. Moving on, let's go to the Megazords. Let's start right off the bat with what is by far the coolest Megazord ever designed in all of Power Rangers, and I will gladly fight you on this, because it's awesome, dude. If you don't love this Megazord, you do not love Power Rangers, plain and simple. Because this is one of the coolest Megazords ever designed. If not the coolest. This is the Thundersaurus Megazord. It not only looks Triassic the way it should, because it's a dinosaur-themed season, but think about this. On one arm, you have the Triceratops, where you can use its horns to stab your opponent. And then the other arm is the Tyrannosaurus Zord's tail that can be used as a freaking drill. It's just as awesome as it sounds. Like, think about it. You can smack him with this 1 minute, and then you can just drill them right through the chest the next. Seriously, oh my goodness, I love the Thundersaurus Megazord for that one reason. I mean, how often is it in Power Rangers we get a straight-up drill as a weapon on a Megazord without having to have an alternate combination? Point proven, let's move on. If my computer wants to load today. Thank you. Moving on from that, we also have the Dino Stega Megazord, which is made of Drago and Brachio, along with, of course, Stega. And then for the other ones, you have the Mezzodon, the Triceramax, and the Valkosaurus. But the Thunderosaurus is by far the best designed. Like, that thing is so cool. And then, of course, it has many alternate combinations, which I didn't want to write them down, but I already have the website pulled up, and like I said, I'm giving this one special treatment. So, now let's talk about all the alternate combinations. Because I love this season so much, I'm willing to put in the extra time. We have the Thunderosaurus Megazord with a Cephalopuncher, a Thunderosaurus Megazord with a Dimetro Saw Blade, Thunderosaurus Megazord with a Stego Surfboard. It sounds dumb, but it's cool in the episode. Thunderosaurus Megazord with a Parasaur Cutter, pretty much giant scissors. Thunderosaurus Megazord with an Ankylo Drill, yeah, a double drill Megazord, as if it wasn't already cool. Then you have the Thunderosaurus Megazord with an Ankylo Drill and the Parasaur Cutter. The Dino Stegazord with Cephalopuncher and Dimetro Saw Blade. The Dino Stega with Ankylo Drill and a Parasaur Cutter. And then, surprisingly enough, there's a toy-exclusive Zord called the Arctic Pterazord, which is a bit weird. It's pretty much just the Pterazord toy from the main Dino Thunder line, but it's colored green. Why is it colored green? Who knows? But, yeah, that's just something we're pointing out. So yeah, I went through that extra effort because I love this season, and I wanted to give it some extra attention. Sue me. Now let's move on to the essential episodes, and I'm going to flip these pretty quickly because I just want to go all about the rest of the series from here. First up, we have the two-part pilot, Day of the Dino. It's a great pilot, by the way. Then you have Legacy of Power, which is literally the third episode, which is episode 500 of Power Rangers, so they did it as a celebration. So it's a clip show, but it's a really cool one that tells the Ranger team, Connor, Ethan, and Kira, about Tommy's legacy as a Power Ranger, which is really cool. I'm glad they actually got that out of the way very quickly. And then Back in Black, Tommy becomes the Black Dino Ranger. Then you have White Thunder 1 through 3. This is the introduction of the White Ranger and the evil White Ranger saga, as I'm going to call it. Then we have Truth and Consequences. This is when Trent starts becoming possessed by the gem. And then we have Leader of the Wax, sorry. Truth and Consequence. It is Leader of the Wax, sorry. Leader of the Whack. This is when all the Rangers get their personalities flipped. It's as funny and awesome as it sounds. Then moving on from there, we have Bully for Ethan. This is a great character episode for Ethan. It's technically a filler episode, but I think it's essential because it works to develop his character, where he finds a more peaceful solution to what could have been a very violent situation. Then we have Lost and Found in Translation. This one's a fan favorite because it's an homage to Super Sentai, and yeah, I can see why. It's a fun episode. It's not the actual Sentai that Dino Thunder is adapted from, but it's still really cool, and it does a great job, getting most of the main elements of Super Sentai down, at least from what I could tell. I've only seen a few Sentais. Then moving on from there is Copy That. This is Trent's redemption, where he fights an evil clone of himself, and then finally becomes a good Ranger, which means he gets to join the team. Then we have Triassic Triumph. That's the Triassic Ranger introduction. Then Star is Torn. This is another character development episode, this time with Kira, where she gets a producer to give her music a try, but when she first signs up, she doesn't like it. It's one of those episodes, a lot like, that episode Really Big Shrimp from Drake and Josh? Yeah, it's kind of like that, where she ends up getting conned in a way into making it, but it's not as in-depth as Really Big Shrimp because that was a double-length special, so. But it's still a really good episode that goes to show that Kira really cares about the heart of her music and less about the money or the popularity. Yeah. Enough said there, let's move on. Then we have a Ranger exclusive. This is the introduction of the Mezzodon Megazord. Fighting Spirit. This is the best episode of the season and Tommy's best episode. This is the episode where Tommy gets put in a coma because of the effects of the Black Dino Gem. And he has a fight with all his past selves. Well, except for Turbo. But you know what? Turbo was garbage, so I don't care. He fights Zeo, and he fights both Mighty Morphin versions of himself. Like, it's just as awesome as it sounds. Then there's Passion of Connor. This is when the Triassic thing becomes a battleizer. And then we have Strange Relations, the introduction of the Valkosaurus Megazord. And then we have the crossover, Thunderstorm Part 1 and 2. Awesome crossover. Not only do we get to see all the Rangers fight the villain together, but they bring back Lothor, and he makes the 3 Wind Rangers evil. Which means we get to see the past Rangers fighting the current Rangers. Morphed and unmorphed, by the way. Again, it's just as awesome as it sounds. Then we have another technically filler episode, but it's a really fun one I want to throw in. It's Drawn into Danger. This is the comic book episode where they have to fight a villain that's writing a comic book at the same time as they're fighting. Like, it's a fascinating episode, and if you love comic books, you're gonna love all the little hints and nods to the way that a comic book is created and made. Then we have House of Cards. That's the start of the end game. And then we have Test of Trust. This is the second part of the end game and the final episode before the finale. And then we have the finale, Thunderstruck Part 1 and 2, where all 5 Rangers put up one final fight against Mezzagog. And Mezzagog gets an altered super form that's terrifying and awesome in all the best ways. And then all the Rangers fight together. It's just such a sick finale, man. It's so cool. Alright, we are done with the analytical stuff. Now I can glow about the rest of the season. Let's start with the suits. Oh my goodness, I love these suits so much. I'll start with the normal suits first for red, yellow, and blue. The white stripes, the main Ranger color, the gold outlines, and that gold symbol. Not to mention all the helmets being very unique and perfectly fitting in with each dinosaur power they are representing. And then we come to Tommy's Black Dino Thunder Ranger form, which is somehow even better because he gets shoulder pads. He has a cool visor, and since he has a stark black suit, they don't want to use the white spikes. So instead, what do? Make the spikes gold. It's just as awesome as it sounds again. And then you have probably the most awesomely designed Ranger in all of Power Rangers, the White Dino Thunder Ranger. I don't even know where to begin with that design. Again, I pretty much glowed about it later, but I'm going to glow about it again. I love this design so much. Not only because of the awesome Super Dino mode, but because, again, like Tommy, he has shoulder pads, he has an awesome helmet, and again, stark white with black stripes. And then if that wasn't cool enough, then you have the visor, which, unlike the others, which are all black, it's red. Red with a very thick black outline. It does a great job being menacing and a great job being awesome. Like, oh my goodness, I love the White Ranger. Just in terms of design, he's the best of the bunch. And I already glowed about Mezzagog, I already glowed about the characters, so why don't I finish this off by just talking about my overall thoughts. Best season of Power Rangers. You will not convince me otherwise, no matter what you do. It's well written, it's funny, it's entertaining, the characters are well developed throughout the entire thing. Awesome villain, excellent fights, great cinematography, great directing, great settings, great finale, great crossover. It's just a phenomenal, pretty much flawless season of Power Rangers. A height that they would never reach again, no matter how much they try. Seriously, Dino Thunder is an incredible season. And to this day, it is still hailed as a top 10 season of the franchise. I'd go so far as to say it's the best, and even go further than that, saying it's not only the best season of Power Rangers, but probably one of the best seasons of any live-action show ever. Yes, up there with Drake and Josh. It's that good. Like, it's so good. Okay, so is it 100% flawless? No, there's little gripes. Like, I already mentioned Elsa and Principal Randall kind of just being as far as henchmen go. But the other big problem I have is that, I don't know, I feel like at, 32 episodes? What is it, 32? 32 episodes? Let me look. 38. I feel like at 38 episodes, it was just a bit too short. And there were a few things that they did have to rush. But not a whole lot, mind you, but a decent bit. And especially towards the end, started getting a little bit rushed. But it was all saved by the excellent 4-part endgame that leads into the finale. And the finale itself is just awesome. Seeing all 5 Rangers fight against an evolved Mesogog, who's at this point separate from Anton Mercer, in one big final battle. It's just as awesome as it sounds. And then it also brings everyone's characters' arcs to a close seamlessly. Like, even when I try to bring up negatives with the show, I still bring up more positives because I just adore this season. I've rewatched it more times than I can count, and this is definitely one I'm adding to my DVD collection one way or another. Whether I have to get the season on its own or one of those box sets, I'm getting Dino Thunder because it is a season that deserves to be rewatched again and again and again and passed down to further generations. It is the best season of Power Rangers and one of the best live-action series of all time. I cannot praise this season enough. If you have, for some reason, and whatever reason, have not watched Dino Thunder, you need to. And don't use, it's Power Rangers as an excuse. It is far more sophisticated than you give it credit for. I have literally nothing else to say without talking in circles or going into spoilers, so I'm just gonna end it right here. My final verdict for Power Rangers Dino Thunder is the first and only 11 out of 10. It is a flawless season of this show, and it is one that I will gladly rewatch any day of the week. It's what got me into Power Rangers, and while every season that come after it didn't quite hit the same level as this, it still did a lot. It did a lot right. Thankfully, though, the momentum would be kept up pretty well because next is the great SPD. So, yep. See you for that review, and until then, may the power protect you.